Hello, call me Regina. I am a mother, high school English teacher, hiker, nature lover, dog and cat friend, writer, and hobbyist. You're looking at one of my hobbies. I love to take pictures. I simply use an iPhone camera. There's nothing expert about my pictures. I just love taking beautiful pictures of things that I love. You're looking at my two sons. We're on a hike. We're at the western end of the island of St. Croix, where I was born and raised, and it's taken me everything not to tell these two young men to step away from the edge. But of course, we're okay. These are my two pets. One is Mary Shelley, and the other is James Baldwin. I name my animals, my friends, after favorite authors. My classroom is at the bottom. It's the end of the school year, so it doesn't look like that anymore. This is me on a most recent hike where we went to a pond that used to be a pond and a riverbed that used to be a riverbed, which pretty much shows that environmental change is happening everywhere in the world, even in my small little corner. And then this is me reading poetry for the first time since I was a teenager. So I'm getting back to not just writing, I've always written, but now I'm getting back to sharing my writing. This one image shows a personal trait that has served me well throughout my entire life. I am curious, so I don't pass by rocks. I look at them carefully, I take pictures of them, and I wonder about them and other things as well. My curiosity is seen in the array of books that I carry with me and that I have on my bookshelf and that I'm interested in. So these are some of the books that I'm reading right now. Ethical Loneliness, which is a deep read, a difficult read, and a slow read, which is a good read. This Poison Heart, I judged the book by its cover, and I'm glad that I did. It's a beautiful book. It happens to be a YA book, and I'm absolutely loving it. Van Gogh, one of my favorite painters. This has all of his paintings and a wonderful biography of his life. Several copies of Frankenstein, several copies of several books that I have for different reasons. And this one I'm interested in because it is annotated for scientists, engineers, and creators, and it includes some wonderful essays that connect the book to our modern lives. The last book, The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, I don't presently have, but I'm interested in getting. The Island of Dr. Moreau's 1977 movie was actually filmed on the island of St. Croix. So I do like to connect books to where I am and connect books to my students as well. I am purely an academic. I do love the outdoors. As you've seen, I love to go on hikes, but I also do walks, usually very short walks. But the image that you're seeing here is a long walk. It's a 14-mile walk from one fort to another. Every July 3rd, we celebrate the emancipation of the formerly enslaved in the former Danish West Indies. It's not a walk I'm going to do again. It was 14 miles, and it was tiring and taxing on the body. I did get a soccer ball to kick around the yard, so there's nothing team sports about me. But I, again, just love being active and doing things outdoors and keeping my body moving. I went to both public and private schools. I graduated from Florida International University with a bachelor's in English education, and I have a reading degree from Grand Canyon University. I do believe that reading is an activity that can enrich your life. It can nurture a person. It can even save a person just as physical activity can. It's part of rounding you out. So I see academics as a way of becoming a whole person. And I see reading as becoming a whole person. My favorite reading story in a classroom occurs at a high school I taught at in South Carolina, where I was teaching at-risk students test prep class or remedial English class, basically to get them ready for the state test, which is a requirement for them to graduate. This class had all boys. They were smart. They were athletic, unlike their teacher. They all hated reading, unlike their teacher. So what do? I decided I would teach the kite runner because the protagonist is a male. There's war and some images in the reading that, of course, connects with them, and then, of course, that one disturbing image. And the way that school dealt with a book like this that deals with a very difficult issue is that we had to send home an abstract of the book. So it was cleared, and parents knew what they were going to read. And again, I had this group of boys who didn't like reading, didn't want to be there at all. So I gave them the book. I started by reading out loud, trying to get them into it, explain some of the context, but not too much because I just want them to get into the book. At one point, we reached the protagonist's first image of the woman that he would then marry, and Mitch just stopped. He stopped and he reread the lines, and he reread the lines, and he said, "She's so beautiful." And I remember all these years because Mitch was hooked. His mother was actually a university professor, and she taught reading to teachers. She emailed me and she said, "I don't know what happened. The boy is reading the book. He's talking about the book." This is something she always wanted to do and was just mystified because she's a reading teacher. She's an academic herself and couldn't get him into a book, and he just loved this book. So without knowing it at that time, I realized that there is a book for every person, and every person has their book, which, of course, are two of the laws of library science. So, why do I want to be a librarian? We all understand that the classroom has changed during the pandemic. Teaching looks a lot different in some aspects. The kind of things that we have to deal with has transformed over the years, and I read one article that said upwards of 50% of teachers are thinking of leaving the classroom. That's one of my reasons. The other reason is that I'm really looking for something that's a lot quieter, but the demand of the job is still pretty high. I want something that's creative, and I still want to make a reading impact on young people. If for nothing else, it might seem a little simple, but I do love libraries. I've always been in spaces where there are books. I always want to be in spaces where there are a lot of books. I want to be around people seeking books and people who love working with books. I want to work with books and information. So that's the core of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm actually at the end. The end is in sight. This class, the web design class that's coming up and that I'm currently enrolled in the practicum, are the only 3 classes that are left before graduation. During my entire course of study, I enjoyed learning about the cataloging system and how it reflects historical and social ideas, in particular the colonization of stacks, the organization of libraries. I didn't know that there was more than one way to organize a library. I was used to do the decimal system. And it's also interesting to learn that people are looking at other ways of putting libraries together and organizing information. I enjoyed the history of libraries and how technology affects it, and how technology helps to bring information to us, and sometimes how technology can actually put a block between the information it gets to people. I ideally would like to work in a high school library or a middle school library. The library at my school I see in a much different light. So I should be doing my practicum there, and because of my studies, I see an immediate knowledge application that I was not able to see directly when I started the program. So now when I walk into the library, I can see a need for reading, specific areas of collection development, the style and the form of the library, the use of electronic checkouts, and literacy work that's needed in the school, and partnering with teachers in the classroom. So I have a vision for libraries that I didn't have before and couldn't speak about in the first introduction I did for the first classes that I did. And so in this course, I am looking forward to having a broader understanding, a newer understanding actually, of young adult literature. The last young adult literature class I took was at FIU. I graduated in 1996, so that was a long time ago, and the class was called Young Adult Literature. The professor at the time focused on multiculturalism, so we came away with about 8 to 12 books that focused on the areas that you see on the screen. She concentrated a whole lot on Zora Neale Hurston and folklore. I think what she wanted to do was to show that Native Americans, Asian literature had a beginning in literature, had literature to begin with, because so much of what we were told when we were younger is that we don't have culture, we don't have history, and I think that was really her focus. So in this class, I am looking for new books from different authors, the inclusion of LGBTQ and how that could be used with students and what that looks like, especially in the spaces of censorship and book bans during this time period. When I was at FIU, I had done a paper on censorship, but the context wasn't the same as it is today. So, of course, censorship always happened, but my paper was more like a theoretical paper that would give me the idea of what I would do if I was faced with that. And now it's more of a reality. So in this class, I want to know what changes schools are making and what changes libraries are making and how they're dealing with like a Tennessee situation with mouse, and of course Florida, where books are being pulled from teacher classrooms. There's so much oversight. Yeah. Well, this is the end. I hope we have a really great semester and a wonderful summer. And in addition to all our coursework, that we find some time to grow and do the things that we love, like planting ferns. I love ferns. Bye for now.